Your workbench doesn't look like this. Did you even fix anything?
Mud maintenance. That's what we're working on today. Last weekend we got out in the mud and uh had a bunch of fun with that. Insert awesome clip here. Uh anyway, I do this just about every single time we go out in the mud. I've been running in the mud with RCs for probably about 5 years now. So I feel like I've done this enough times to feel comfortable enough giving you guys some information on this stuff. If you're going to take your truck in the mud, in the deep water, whatever it may be, you're going to have to do this type of maintenance at some point. They don't run forever, especially if you put them in the mud on a regular basis. You're going to run into problems. So right now, this is my son's truck. It's a TRX4 Sport. Pretty much stock drivetrain. Diffs are stock, transmission stock. He's got a Holmes motor in there with a 1080. Heavy wheel weights. So, you know, a lot of rotational force and stuff. Stock portals, all that stuff. So he's got some big resistance going on in here. Before we went out in the mud, I could spin these wheels by hand, and they spun smoothly. And they're not doing that now. So what that tells me is something in the drivetrain is sticking, which I don't think it's in the diffs. I think we're going to have to go into the transmission. We'll see. But this is just, I do this regularly, okay? This is something everybody should do if they're going to, or everybody should learn how to do if they're going to go in the mud. And we'll just see what we can find in here. First thing, obviously, when you get out of the mud, you know, you're going to want to spray it off with water. And before you do anything, I just spray off as much mud as you can. Next you're going to do is give it a day to dry out, just so you don't make a huge mess. See, I still got some drippage going on. There's some kind of yuck and stuff. This is a dirty job. It's going to be dirty, but it's worth the fun. So he's got all kinds of stuff wrapped up in this drive shaft. I'll see if I can pull the clip up of his drive shaft. His drive shaft was completely full of grass and all kinds of stuff. So that might have hurt his drivetrain a little bit too. But we had a lot of fun that day. So I'm going to tear into this and just start cleaning and taking stuff apart and see what we got and see if we can find the problem. Alright, I got the motor out. Now let's see here. Motor, that's spinning nice and easy. Now you can see, I think you can see, there's a whole mess of nastiness in here. Let's see if I can be quiet for a second. You can hear the grindy. There's a little bit of grinding going on in there. So what I'm going to do is just start cleaning. More than likely the bearings are a little dirty. They're all, it's spinning, it's just not spinning the way it should. So it probably just needs to be cleaned. I mean, look at all this stuff. All this has to be cleaned every so often if you're going to go in the mud. I mean, obviously you have rotational resistance you have to deal with. You got some stuff wrapped up in here. This is just something to look out for if you decide to play in the mud on a regular basis. You're going to have to clean stuff like this. You can't just keep running it because it will break. The bearings will break down over time, and that'll tear your drive line up and everything else. So let's get started on a full teardown. Alright, transmission and drive shafts are out. Starting to get dirty. Look at all this yuck. Okay? All that stuff causes problems over time. So best thing to do is take it outside, spray it off good, or hit it with a brush. This is a plastic bristle brush. So I just get in here and just scrape all this stuff out. Clean it up in there. You got to clean up in here where your spur gear sets. That's full of water and mud and stuff like that. Axles, you can kind of hear if they spin nice and quiet and super free of binding or anything. Usually your axles are pretty good. Okay, these are, oh, I got stuff in the way here. Hang on. All right, I hear a little bit of noise. Sounds like it might be one of the portals. So I'll have to open up one of those and check those out. But the rear sounds okay. You can see some of that stuff, like this stuff right here. We got to get rid of that stuff. So, get it clean in there. This is just basic stuff for mud. And any kind of like really nasty stuff you decide to go through. It has to be cleaned over time. Do you have to clean it every single run? Probably not. But I would say at least every 4 or 5 runs, you got to get in here and do some serious cleaning. Now, the transmission, let me set you back over here. Transmission, surprisingly, spins pretty smooth. Not really getting a lot of rolling resistance out of it. I am going to brush this off really good, clean it up really nice. That plastic spur has seen better days. It's got a little bit of wear on it. So, he might need a new spur gear soon. But we got a little bit of rust starting on this shaft, so I need to clean that up. But for the most part, this truck has held up beautifully. For as many times as it's gone in the mud and been beaten on, yeah, that feels okay. Yeah, it really just needs cleaning. I don't think I need to replace any bearings or anything like that just yet. This bearing is sitting on the outside, and that's in fine condition. I've gone through and replaced the bearings at least twice in the 4 years he's had this truck. So, bearings do last a really long time as long as you take care of it. Grease them every once in a while. Not take the bearing apart, but just take the bearing out, re-grease the transmission, put the bearings back in, and usually that's enough to make them last a lot longer. But yeah, let's start the cleaning montage. Alright, you see this kind of stuff? This is the stuff that breaks axles. Is getting things wrapped around your portals and then not fixing it later. Which, that little piece of grass isn't going to hurt any, but if you get wire, if you get fishing line, or anything that's got a high tensile strength wrapped around these axles, they will break. So, like, this kind of a maintenance job is important. Go through here and check and see if you have anything causing any rolling resistance. See, now that I have that wheel off, I can feel a little bit of rolling resistance in there. It should be rolling a lot smoother than that. So I'll probably have to take these axles all the way apart and re-grease everything. I got a little bit of play in these hubs, so that tells me that the bearing might be going out in them, which I have plenty of spare bearings. It's just something that you need to have on hand if you're going to go in the mud, because you will eat bearings. Water gets in there and it does tear these up over time. Like I said, the bearings that are in here are probably a year old. At least a year old. So to last this long, I'm still pretty impressed with that. I usually, unless I can't find the size I need, I always go with Fast Eddie bearings. That's just my personal preference. Or do they do any better than any other bearings? I don't know. I just prefer to buy from him. All right, let's keep going. Alright, now while these things are still together, I'm going to soak these in some soapy water and scrub them with a brush. Get the outside really nice and clean, and then we'll focus on the inside. We'll take them apart. Tires definitely sucked up some water and mud and stuff, so I'll have to clean those too. And then we'll do the same thing with the transmission. Frame's almost done. Just have to scrub that out a little bit. And if you make your electronics waterproof, which obviously you should be waterproof if you're going in the mud in the first place, but a little bit of soap and water is not going to hurt this one bit. So I use Dawn dish liquid. That seems to be the easiest thing to use. So I'm literally going to go dunk this skid plate in some soapy water and just scrub it with my, wherever my brush went, thing that was right here. Yeah. Just going to scrub it real good. Scrub these real good. Scrub those. Scrub that. Once everything's clean on the outside, then we'll take it apart and fix the inside. Tires. Axles. Drive shafts. Transmission. Motor cover. And we'll wait on that for a minute so I got some more space. Soap. Hose. Brush, big brush. It's what I scrub my tires with. But let's get that going. Knock the camera over. Something simple like this. Don't have to be super thorough. Soap kind of takes care of most of it. Kind of scrub it, let it soak, scrub it, let it soak. Scrub the tires. If you rinse it good enough, makes this whole process go a lot faster if you rinse it really, really good right after getting out of the mud. Not everybody has that option, but I wouldn't go mudding and then just let that mud dry on everything, because that's going to make your job 10 times harder later. Give everything a light scrub, soak. Need 2 more tires. Not much to it, but it is necessary. It's a dirty job. Somebody's got to do it.
Alright, I'm gonna get an axle. Scrub the axle real good. Like I said, I've been going in the mud and doing deep water videos and all kinds of stuff going on about 5 years now, so I feel confident in saying, you know, is there other ways to do this? Absolutely, but this is the way I do it, and it's worked out pretty well for me so far. That's pretty good. What else we got in here? We've got, already scrubbed that. Drive shafts. Not that you really need to scrub these or anything, but if you're going to clean, you might as well clean everything. So if they telescope in and out, good. I don't know. I already scrubbed that one. What else? No, this is something. Motor cover. There you go.
Alright, I got everything sitting on an old nasty towel. Still got some grass and some hair and some yuck going on in here. Quick little tip for that kind of stuff. I have an old used dental pick. You can pick them up at Walmart or something. And that's what I use to get into these small creases here. Because any of this stuff, I mean, it may not seem like a big deal, but all of this stuff adds rolling resistance, which means your motor has to work harder, which means eventually it's going to wear everything out faster. So always keep that in mind. It may not seem like a big deal, but all this little stuff adds up, and you can burn your motor out working it too hard, trying to pull all this junk through here. So I always just go through here and clean, make sure. You can hear a little bit of grindy bits in there, a little bit in there. But yeah, I'm gonna Make sure these are nice and picked through good. And I'm going to go grab my air compressor and dry all this stuff off before I take these axles apart. Transmission's got to come apart. We're going to re-grease everything, make sure everything's nice and clean, and then we'll start putting it all back together. Alright, we got everything dry. First thing I'm noticing here, we got a top of a case of a bearing that's come out. Little piece of metal there. So we're going to take this portal off, change that bearing, look inside there. Everything's spinning pretty smooth, so I don't think any bearings are completely gone, but we definitely need to change that one out. And just do a little grease check, and then we'll start putting everything back together. Alright, so there you have it. We changed out the bearing. You can see the cover had gotten off of there. The bearing is still spinning fine, but if you run open bearings like that, they're not going to live long. So it's better to just change it. I'll keep this as like an emergency bearing if I need to change something out on the trail just to get it so I don't have to carry it back, which that's quite a bit of work, but I've been far enough on the trail to where it's actually worth it to change a bearing on the trail. But yeah, we'll stick that in with the new bearings and old bearings and used bearings and all that stuff. Keep all my bearings in a little case or bag. Yeah, so this side's pretty good. It's not ready to be changed yet. It's still spinning nice and free. Going through here, everything feels pretty good now that it's all dry. We'll do a quick check of the diffs, make sure there's no water in there, but it feels good. But we'll check those real quick, and then we'll go into the transmission. Transmission, it feels okay, but I feel a little bit of rolling resistance in there, so it's worth checking. Just to maybe just put a little fresh grease in there. The bearings feel fine. I don't have any play. You always want to check your shafts for play. There's just a smidge. I might have to change that one. How about this one? No, that one's good. So yeah, there might be a bearing that needs to be changed right there. Maybe. It's got a little bit of play in there. But yeah, we'll do that real quick. Do a grease check. Then we start putting everything back together. Alright, and just like that, he's ready to go back out into the mud again. So, in consensus, let me just clear my workspace here. Alright. Alright. Almost. Alright, good enough. Good enough. Alright, so, if you're gonna do this, you're gonna need to do this.